It's no secret that items in Path of Exile 2 provide enormous amounts of power for your character and build. Some of these items have inherent bonuses called implicit modifiers, which are tied to specific item bases. Examples of these implicits can be found on weapons, body armor, belts, jewelry, and quivers. Some of these can provide you with very powerful and useful modifiers depending on what your character needs. On the other hand, some are just bad. In this video, I'll be examining the big problem with specific implicit modifiers, along with providing some potential solutions to these issues. Let's break it down. The fundamental problem with some of these implicit modifiers is that they very quickly become useless and irrelevant as more item bases become available.
And offering to do the same work for next to nothing. They took our jobs. Yeah, they took our jobs.
The unscalable nature of these implicits also heavily contributes to this issue. Many of the items can be found as early as Act 1 and provide a decent bonus for that point in progression. But as soon as you progress further throughout the game, many other item bases begin to appear and provide much better implicit bonuses. The first example I'd like to highlight is the Iron Ring, which provides an additional 1-4 flat physical damage to attacks. This additional damage is actually quite nice in Act 1, especially if you happen to find it from the guaranteed ring spawn in the Cemetery of Eternals. However, very shortly after finding these, other ring bases begin to drop and can provide a lot more value. This is especially true because a Sapphire Ring, which has an implicit modifier of 20 to 30% cold resistance, can also roll a higher value of flat physical damage as a prefix modifier than the Iron Ring's implicit as well. The Lazuli Ring is another example of this, and is probably the worst ring in the game that essentially nobody uses, except for maybe a few super niche cases. The flat mana roll of 20 to 30 is just outshined so quickly that there really isn't ever a reason for this ring to be used. The same can be said about the Broadhead, Fire, and Sacral quivers respectively, as all of these quivers exhibit the exact same fundamental problem. These implicit modifiers can be very useful early on, but very quickly become the worst quiver bases in the game due to their implicit modifiers being outshined by better options. Having these items with problematic implicit modifiers results in an imbalance between item bases, and it just feels bad to have these effectively dead items within the game. This may not feel like a big issue now, but it's important to remember that there will be many more items added to the game over time. If this isn't looked at, it may be exacerbated exponentially in the future. Next, let's look at some potential solutions that can help GGG solve this problem. There are two potential solutions that GGG can take to address this issue. The first would be to allow for these implicit modifiers to scale accordingly to the progression point of the player. For reference, there are 3 different variants for all weapons and armor bases in Path of Exile 2, which is very reminiscent of the tiers of items in Normal, Nightmare, and Hell difficulty in Diablo 2. Take a look at the Oakwood, Ironwood, and Snakewood Great Hammer as an example. Because this item's implicit modifier is a % increase in stun buildup, the endgame variant scales higher to increase its effectiveness. Many item bases get better as you progress in the game, which helps your character feel stronger and ready to tackle whatever stage of progress they're currently in. I would propose that this be applied to these problematic item bases as well. If an Iron Ring could drop with a T1 flat physical damage implicit roll of 12 to 32 instead of its current 1 to 4, it would immediately become a sought-after and useful item for certain builds. The Lazuli Ring could also be a valuable base for mana stacking builds if it rolled with 150 mana instead of 30. There is lots of potential here. The second and less enjoyable solution would be for certain items and modifiers to stop appearing in the drop pool as the game progresses. I've considered the possibility that these items could be specifically intended to be useful very early on in the game, and that's it. If that's the case, I would propose that these items phase out as characters get further in their progression, and ultimately stop dropping after a certain point. Of course, the unique variants of these items can still be useful throughout the endgame, and these should stay in the drop pool. As a side note, I wish that this could also happen to specific modifiers on items as well. For example, it feels terrible to have an item level 82 boot roll with 10% movement speed. Lastly, I just wanted to highlight an idea that I had that could be interesting. What if there was an item or currency that could permanently improve the implicit modifiers of items? What if quality could also increase their scaling? Would you be for or against this, and why? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Alright everybody, that wraps it up for this video. I hope that GGG takes a closer look at these problematic items and potentially adjusts their implicit modifiers to make them relevant throughout the entire game instead of only in Act 1. I think it's an important problem to solve now, as it will only get worse when more items are introduced to the game. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing for more PoE2 content. Also, check out my podcast where I discuss the game, life, and everything in between with a bunch of awesome people. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.